Hi everyone, it's Andy from Hobby Headquarters. Well, I've got an exciting new kit to build for you guys today. This is the 35th scale M3A1 Lee cast hull from Takom. And it's basically very similar to the regular Lee kit, except just what I was saying, they cast the entire top of the hull as one big casting, just like they did with the early Shermans. Now, up until about an hour ago, I didn't have any plans at all of building this kit, but just recently we got done with the SMK from Takom, and we did all the extra fading and weathering on it, and just had a great time doing that kit. And about to do something else, and then this one caught my attention. I thought, man, we can do something similar, but with American olive drab, and really weather it and beat it up, things like that, and just have some fun with it. So I saw this one. The part count is not huge on it. I thought this is a perfect thing to start to build up for you guys. So looks like it's going to be a really good one. One other thing before we get started I wanted to mention too, we have some new t-shirts in our Spreadshirt account, including the Mediocre Modelers Collector Society one that you see hanging right back there. Those just came out. And you can pick up those and plus all other kinds of t-shirts that we have on our Spreadshirt account. Now, real quick, some of you guys might not understand what Mediocre Modelers mean. There's kind of a long story that involved with that, but basically what Mediocre Modelers means now is we have a Facebook site that we have way over 11,000 people that have already joined just in the last couple of months. And it's a great way for guys to share their stuff and to know that the hobby is all about having fun. And if you're not having fun, I don't know why you're doing the hobby then, because this is a really great fun hobby to do. And that's what Mediocre Modeler is all about. It has nothing to do with your skill, whether you're just starting off or you've been building for 20 years. Whether you use a spray cans, hand brushing, and airbrush, whatever it is, but you're having fun about the whole thing. And that you're not worried about it. As long as you're happy with the model, that's the most important thing on it. So, now that we've got that out of the way, I'm all excited about building up this kit, so let's get started. Okay, we're starting off here working on the lower part of the hull. And you can see to start off with, it's a bathtub style hull. And there's basically only three parts right here. We have the lower hull portion, the front transmission cover, and then the rear plate here that we are gluing into place. Make sure you put extra cement in there. Then once that gets glued into place, put some on the front here, I'll show you. We have these transmission covers. They're going to get glued just like that. And I want to put a little extra cement inside there to make sure that those don't pop off later on. And then finally, what we'll get done will be this final drive here. This has got a little pin inside of it. Put a little cement all around here. And of course there's one for the other side as well. And this way, we don't want to let this piece right here completely dry because we want it to mate up perfectly to this outer cover. So, and that quick and easy, obviously there's one we have to do on the other side, but that is basically the whole lower part of the hull. Now we can go ahead and start working on the Bogie wheels, as well as things like the drive sprocket, which are just two parts, gluing an A and B together. And this is put on by pressure fitting it. So there's no poly caps inside, but the peg here is larger than, or not larger, but really a tight fit. So you can put this on and not have to worry about gluing it. And you don't ever want to glue these into place, especially when you have the individual tracks like that, because it's going to make it much easier to wrap them around. So I'm going to go ahead and get this other side glued into place, and then we'll come back and start working on the Bogie wheels. Okay, we're going to start building up the Bogie wheels, and this is the completed one, right, or one of the completed ones that I built up earlier. I should also point out too, Takom gives you the possibility of making all of this suspension work. All of these pieces, the way they're glued together, can work. I personally don't like to make them work in this type of situation. We have link and link tracks on that, so the tracks aren't going to move at all. And quite frankly, movable suspension, if you're just going to make a static flat model, is going to give you a lot of problems down the road. So my opinion, just go ahead and glue it all together. Make sure it's nice and flat and straight and ready to put on. But definitely, it's going to cause you a lot less problems down the road. Now, just quickly, I'll zoom in here a little bit and just kind of quickly show you how the piece goes together. So these are all the parts, and I've already assembled one side of the wheel here. And show you how this goes together. It's all specific directions everything goes. There is a little bit of extra cleanup on some of these parts in here, but nothing super difficult. And you see how you have to stack all of this together. And this is where it gets a little bit fun if you were going to make it workable. But we're going to go ahead and just glue it together right now. And that is going to help quite a bit in the build process. Okay, and then once we have those two parts together, a little glue on this side. And then we have to put the sides of these on into place. And one of those goes on either side. And the only reason I'm kind of showing you this in a little bit more depth than what we do on some of the other parts is, A, people always ask me about the suspension, because this is probably going to be the most difficult portion of this whole kit. And I wouldn't say it's difficult at all, it's just a lot of little parts that are involved in this. And then once that gets put into place there, we can go ahead and drop this down. And you want to get this little peg right here in that little hole. And that's the fun part. And you can imagine how fun that is to try to do all that while these things are flopping around and trying to fall off too. So if you're going to make your suspension, in motion, great. But if not, I would advise just to go ahead and glue it into place. And then this part is going to get glued just like this on this side. And we're going to let this dry for about 5 minutes now before we go on to the next step. Actually, I almost forgot to put the return roller on the top before we let all this fuse together. Okay, that's set up for a little while now. Now we can go ahead and do the wheel portion, which I just noticed. No, actually I did see on that right there. That's just the white part when you cut it off the sprue. And once again too, I'm going to go ahead and glue the wheels into place as well. It does have the possibility of movable wheels, but not really going to be playing with this too much, so just want to make sure that this slides into place here, making sure that they pop inward on both sides. So then you'll have two of these assemblies here. Okay, now we've let it set up for a little bit. We don't want to let it set up too long, and that is because we want to be able to get these little pins inside the holes that correspond on the other side of the suspension arm here. And then we can go ahead and put just a touch of glue inside there. And obviously before that sets up, we want to get the other side in. Now what I'm going to show you here is I made this mistake when I built the Grant kit quite a while ago. These little plates are supposed to ride on the top. And the Grant kit, I didn't notice it, and I actually ended up gluing them all in like this. And it was, if you don't really know up close, but a lot of people pointed it out to me, and by that time it had already fused in there, so it wasn't coming apart. So this side's going to get locked in there. You just got to flex these little arms to go on both sides. It rides inside like that, and what we're going to do is you let this dry in the perfect position, so that you know that all your wheels are going to be flat. Now this one's been drying overnight actually, so we're going to go ahead and just attach those right into position, just like this. 3 on each side. There's no specific ones for either side, so when these get glued in and we put the return roller on the back, that is like a huge portion of this build, because this kit actually goes together pretty simply, some super detail, but goes together really well. Okay, we have all of the Bogie wheels into place, drive sprocket, and so the return roller in there as well. So you can see that's all ready to go. Everything fits flat on the bottom of the ground. All the wheels are touching. What I thought I would do real fast is just show you all of the tracks basically before we cut them out, just to let you see. Not too bad. We have two long links that will make up the top and bottom. This makes the part that goes up, and then we have just the individuals that are going to do the final wrap around the drive sprocket and return idler. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to remove all the tracks off for one side only right now, and we'll show you how they go together. Okay, let's take a look at the tracks, because I was a little concerned that they were going to be a little bit difficult, but actually I built one side up and super easy to put together. First of all, Takom gives you a little brace like this, and that is to put this top piece on. You're going to lock it into place here in the first tooth. Goes in there, and then you're going to put your individual tracks here, and you're going to get that slight rise that from going from here up into the idler wheel. So once you get that on there, that'll wrap. Then you'll build 5 more pieces of track that'll wrap around. And all I basically did was take these, like you see here, and we just glued them up, let them set up for about 5 minutes, and then just wrapped them around the drive sprocket and just let them dry, just like that. Now what I'm going to show you right here is this is what I've determined I think to be the easiest way to assemble these tracks off the vehicle, that if you want to paint them separately. And it's basically building this setup right here. So here is our slight little rise and our flat track. This was a piece of flat track. This was a piece of flat track. And the only individual tracks we had to worry about were the part for the rise here, and then there were 6 tracks that wrapped around the idler. One goes in between each one of these pieces too. And with this here, and then of course this last little piece, and this will plug right into here, and you'll basically have a whole set of tracks. Now we're not going to glue this on because that's going to be necessary later on after we're done painting. So once we get these painted, we'll be able to basically just slide them down the line here, get them to go around this drive sprocket, and then when that gets on, the last piece we'll just glue into place will be right just like that. And you can see that easy we'll be able to get a whole set of tracks on and still paint them separately. So very easy to put these tracks together. This took me a grand total of maybe an hour, and that was after cut up and cutting them off the sprue and cleaning them up. What I will show you is once they come off the sprue, I've got one over here that I haven't sanded yet. You can see here there are quite a few little nubs on here that you want to obviously take care of, get those sanded off. And what I found too is that you might have to lightly sand the inside of the pad here. And it's just a little bit on each side, and that is just to get the 2 track links to kind of click together. Oop, that's upside down. Just like that. Just so they're a nice tight fit, but before they were like popping out, they were so tight. So with that just touch of sanding, that will really work. And then just a matter of putting a little bit of liquid adhesive, liquid cement inside there, letting them set up for about 5 minutes, and then you can just literally wrap them right around anything you need to. So I've got one side done up. I'm going to go ahead and build up the other side, and then we'll move on to the next section. Now with the tracks done up, we can start working on the rest of the fenders. So what we'll do is we're going to take these off again, get them out of our way, and then we can attach the fenders. Now immediately, I've heard actually somebody else mention this too, the way the instructions call out that people try to go ahead and attach the fender right here to the top, and you get this unusual shape here. Just to let you know, the fenders attach from the bottom. Whoop. The fenders attach up from the bottom in there, and you attach it just like that. So that is the actual way it's supposed to look on both sides. Okay, we're going to move on to the upper part of the hull, but before we do, I just want to let you know we've gone ahead and put like the back door on, the mufflers, the little tie-down hooks, as well as these brackets right here that hold the transmission cover on. All very straightforward, easy to do stuff. The first thing we're going to do with the upper part of the hull is install the gun, which we have just assembled right here. Just a couple pieces that we'll have to sand all that in a minute, but I'm going to show you how this basically goes together. This is going to drop into the gun shield, and that'll get glued into place like that. And then they have a simple mechanism here that you drop in. Let's see if we can move it in a way. Put the vision port up above, this is going to get dropped on top of that, and then that all is going to get glued onto the inside little lip right in through here. And basically what that does is that when the gun moves, the vision port on top will move with it right there. It's kind of hard to get this all put into place right here without, you know, with the camera in the way and stuff. So we'll do that in a minute. But what we're going to do first is going to get this barrel all sanded down. We just got done gluing it on a few minutes ago, and it should be dry enough now that we can do some sanding on it. And then after we get that part done, oh, and this is that little vision block that's going to sit up on top there. You'll see it'll rotate just like this. We also have all of the hatches ready to go. Those are going to get glued right into place just like this. And they already had a vision port on those, plus the other hatches. And there is one other little piece of photo etch that we're going to put over on this grill section right here. So other than putting the tools on, there really isn't a heck of a lot more to put on for the upper hull. And I was doing a little dry fitting just to make sure everything was going to fit just the way it was supposed to. And it does. It snaps basically right into place there. That side gets snapped on, and you got a really nice tight fit for this vehicle. So I'm going to go ahead and get the hatches put on and get that gun port secured as well, and we'll come back and show you what it looks like once it's done. Okay, we've gone ahead and put all of the little accessory parts all over the vehicle. The grates in the back, the antennas, hatches, all the little vision ports, even the little light guards up on the front there. Now all we basically have to do is just complete the turret, and the turret is pretty easy and straightforward. As you can imagine, there's probably a grand total of maybe like 15 parts. So we won't go into too much depth on the build on it. It is a working turret in the sense that the turret will spin, the gun will elevate, things like that. So I'm going to go ahead and just put the turret together. We'll put the whole thing together minus the tracks and the tools, and we'll show you what the vehicle looks like completed. Okay, here is the mostly completed kit right now. We've gone ahead and put things like the weight on it, the light guards, all the other pieces. I also did go over the model one time with a coat of primer to seal, check out if there's any problems anywhere. And one thing, I'm going to stop this right here. There is a pretty noticeable parting line on the upper part of the mold right here that I didn't notice while it was in the plastic form, but after we put the primer on it, we could really see it. So we've gone ahead and sanded it out, and it is all the way around and even on this side as well, too, as you would imagine, because as it comes out the mold. So now that we have that sanded, I think we are ready to go ahead and start to do our black and white shadow and highlight coat. And we're first going to put on a coat of NATO black, and then followed up by any of the highlight areas of like top of hatches, top of the roof, but leaving all the edges and stuff still in the black. Okay, we have the shadow and the highlight coat on there, and didn't go much into depth showing you put the white on. You can see where it's supposed to go. You want to just pick up any areas that will be higher and leaving all the edges nice and black. Now we're going to go ahead and we're going to use Mission Models paint, and we're going to use U.S. Army Olive Drab Faded No. 1. And I think this is going to make a really good paint job that is going to really highlight all this black and white coat, because their paint goes on very, very smooth and will really show that off quite a bit. So we want to do very, very light coats. We want to build them up so that way we can still see all of the work that we did on this here. So let's go ahead and put some paint on it. Okay, we've gone ahead and put 3 light coats and built up the paint job we did on it. And the final coat, I actually ended up using Olive Drab Faded No. 3 from Mission Models. Wanted to give it just a touch more of the green effect to it. the number 1 had a little bit more yellow in it. So really like the way that came out using the 2 different tones. And as you can still see, we can still see the black and white shadow coat underneath it. It's really added some nice highlight definition to the panels. And now that we have that portion done, we've also gone ahead and we clear coated it with just Tester's dull coat, just sealed in all the paint job on it. And now we can go ahead and put the decals on. There is not a lot of decals. Turns out this particular cast hull one, they only made about 300 according to the instructions, and all of them were used in the United States for training during the war. So I think what we're going to do is one that was possibly used like at the Louisiana training area. So this way we're going to scratch it up, beat it up a little bit as if the guys had really put it through its paces out there in Louisiana, which you guys, if you're anywhere around the world, it's very hot and humid there. So there would be some rust all over it. So that's how we're going to go ahead and do that. So let's put the decals on. We're going to seal the decals in, and then we're going to come back and do all of the weathering on it. Now that we've chipped up the vehicle, we are applying a little thin coat of enamel thinner because we're going to be using our Ammo by MIG washes. And once we get the area sufficiently wet with the enamel thinner, put a few little dots of streaking grime first of all. Push it in some areas over here too. And a couple of little dots of light rust wash. Kind of blend it all over the place here. And then finally we can go back to our big brush that we put the thinner down with, and then just slowly streak it down the side of the vehicle. And then on any of the top areas, a blotting effect, or stippling effect I should say, works really well too, because it kind of disperses the pigment in such a way that it looks random, because you wouldn't necessarily have streaks running on the top of a vehicle, you'd have more little puddles of the stuff. And that's about as easy as it is to do that. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to go over the entire vehicle, and we will put all the grime. I'm also going to use a little streaking rust effect too, which is a little bit darker rust, but we'll kind of randomly disperse it. We will come back after it all dries and we'll show you what it looks like. Okay, while the tank is still wet, we're also going to go over, and on some of these areas and some of the cracks and things like that, we're going ahead and putting a little bit of light sienna pigment powder on and kind of pushing it into any of these areas down here that we want to have a little extra dirt on. And if your area starts to dry up, you can always just go back and put a little bit more enamel thinner on. And don't ever worry about putting too much of this pigment on, because the majority of it we can brush off after it is fully dried. It'll come right off, and that'll leave it mainly just in all the little cracks and things like that. So put it on a little bit heavy in the beginning, and then we can always knock off any of the excess. And also we're going to take a old toothbrush, dip lightly into the pigments, and then just use the edge to kind of flick up a few little spots. I'm going to go real light on that. We don't want too many of them. Most of them will blend right into the vehicle once it's dry, but you will see some of those little spots left behind. And now that the pigment wash combination is almost dry, we can start blending it and taking off any of the excess that we see that just looks like it's just overdone. And we're just using a flat brush that's dried out, so we can remove any of the excess on it there. Just so we leave it just build up in the areas we want it. We also want to take a small amount of thinner and just blot it around any of the rivets that we have, just to get them wet. And then we're going to use our black panel wash from Tamiya and just lightly touch each one of them. And just go right around the entire vehicle to highlight any of these rivets. And you want to put the wash, or excuse me, the thinner down first. That helps this flow a little bit better so you don't get any really dark spots. And when that dries right there, it's really going to it's going to soften quite a bit, but it's really going to make them stick out. Well, here we go, guys. Here is our completed model. And I have to say, just like the SMK that we built about a week or so ago, it was as much fun as building that one. I absolutely love putting all the extra weathering and, you know, beating it up, putting the oil stains, things like that on the back deck here. Really makes the vehicle look like it's been sitting out for a while. Picturing it like we were talking earlier, this was supposed to be the one that was training in Louisiana, so after a certain point, the guy just kind of left it out in a field somewhere, kind of got all chipped up and weathered. Overall, as you can see in the video, the model goes together wonderfully, no problems at all. One thing I've heard quite a few people complain about on the internet is that the tracks don't fit. And this is now my second Lee/Grant that I've built, and never ever had a problem with the track. So I can tell you guys that the tracks went together absolutely wonderfully, so no problems with that. And the kit itself, like I said, is not a lot of parts, so it's something that someone can easily put together in a weekend and then really get to the fun part of beating up and weathering it. So I want to thank you guys as always for watching, and please stay tuned because I have many more videos coming.